now.
Yeah,
Magda, we are live here with Metropolitan. As you know, we wanted to give you a chance to kind of talk about your coaching and how you help people transition during,
yes.
I guess, their life and careers. And I was hoping that you could give, say, a 30-second introduction about yourself, what you
Yeah,
came from, and what brought you to Barcelona. Is that okay?
yeah, sure.
Okay, Magda. So, what brought you to Barcelona, and who is Magdalena?
Yeah, exactly. So my name is Magda. I'm originally from Poland, and I've been actually an expat for the last, I would say, already 16 years. So after Poland, I went to Dublin, as many people actually, and then all of a sudden I arrived in Barcelona. That was almost 9 years ago, and that was actually a pure coincidence because I never ever in my life thought of living, in Spain. But all of a sudden, I felt a bit stuck, and this job opportunity arrived, and that was actually very exciting opportunity. And I decided to just take this leap of faith. And I still remember saying to my friends, I don't know anyone in Barcelona, I don't speak Spanish, but I just want to try and see. I can always come back. So yeah, I arrived to Barcelona. I've been working in business, in tech for like around 10 years. Then I was also managing a team, a sales team actually for around 4 years. And then I just decided to pursue my dream career, and I became entrepreneur coach, and I'm currently career business and mindset coach for the last, I would say, 3 years, 2 years full time. Mhm.
Okay. And so, what is it that made you want to move into this area, to transition into entrepreneurship? Because that's a pretty big word.
I know. Definitely the first word that comes into my mind is freedom. And I still remember, watching my parents. And for example, my father has been running his business since I remember. And funnily enough, I don't think I ever saw him frustrated, angry, or anything. It always seemed to me like his work is like a play, like he's kind of enjoying. Even when he was having some calls with customers in the evening, I just saw like this excitement. And on the other hand, I saw lots of frustration, let's say, coming from my mother's side that was, let's say, employed. And this was already, I would say, programmed somehow in my mind that entrepreneurship, wherever you want to create, it's associated with freedom, which is very important for me. And I also love the creative aspect, of that. So pretty much those two values brought me to creating my business. Yeah.
Okay. And so, your business is you yourself are an entrepreneur who is focusing on entrepreneurs. And so, what is it that you particularly like about your business and what you're doing now?
Yeah, probably the first thing is the impact. I definitely also connect with my pain, from the past. At the time when I was stuck in my career, I wasn't sure what to do. I just knew that role was not really working for me anymore. So I was in advertising at that time, and I felt that things have been great, but I'm a different person right now, and I just wanna do something else. And at some point I had this magical moment at the Kilimanjaro mountain that was like 6 hours before we got to the peak of the mountain, and I decided at that point to hire actually a career coach. So I was like, now I'm just gonna invest in it and let's see what comes out. But at that point I just had like a very brief understanding and idea. I was like, maybe I would like to be a coach, let's see. But it wasn't clear. So this step was very important. That was like, okay, you don't have to have this clarity now, just do something differently. If you want to have different results, you have to do something differently. That's it. Very
Okay.
simple. Yeah.
So, it was on Mount Kilimanjaro. You were in Africa, and when you had this moment
Yeah,
of clarity.
exactly. And that was actually March 2020. So it wasn't that, I mean, we didn't have internet. So I had no idea what was going on in Europe. I had no idea that pandemic really started very seriously. We actually climbed the peak of Kilimanjaro on March 13th. So
Oh,
imagine.
wow. Right at the
Yeah.
beginning of COVID here.
Yeah.
Okay. And so, what what would you recommend to somebody who's kind of, unsatisfied with their current life, but not necessarily in a horrible place, and maybe they're a bit stuck, and they're in their career, and they're considering making a change, but they're not quite sure how to do so. What do
Yeah.
you suggest they do as a first step?
First step, I would say, like, really detach from this day to day, so find some either time in silence. So we have great people for the silent retreat in Barcelona, like Heather, for example, Anderson. But what you can also do is just, give yourself few days outside of the city. You can even go alone. I always say that alone time is really bringing us those answers and clarity on things that it's difficult actually to get on a day to day when we are just super busy with meetings, etc. And then also connect with your values. There are even free exercises on the internet. You can simply pull a list of values and just think, okay, what are my core values? And ask yourself, am I really truly living by those values or not so much? This is something maybe what I wish to have in my life, but I don't. And I just, ignore it. I just numb this discomfort on a day to day. Those will be the first steps. And also think about where you really see yourself at the end of the year and maybe in a year time, so that wherever you're doing today should be connected somehow with this. I'm not saying the long-term vision for like 10 years, because even myself, like, I don't have it super clear where I want to be in 10 years. I have a brief like idea, but like connect with those things. I would say those are the first steps. And absolutely, networking is amazing. Like, tap into those communities that somehow you think may bring a value, because what happens for expats, oftentimes in Barcelona, in other cities, they just stay in this little bubble, right? And that was also the case for me for maybe the first like 9 to 12 months. I was also in my little bubble, and it's nice to actually change the environment so that you connect with people who are not in your industry. And you ideally connect with those communities that you think they may bring value. So if in the future you're thinking about being a coach, or maybe just like create your business, go to some networking events, like be in this energy already.
Okay. And so the clients who you're currently supporting, is there a specific thing that they need you to help them address? Or is there a common thing that they're asking you to help them transform into?
Yeah, so at the very beginning, like, many people actually wanna somehow connect a little bit better with themselves. So really understand, okay, what are really those core strengths? Because sometimes people do certain tests, but they don't really get much of it, or maybe they just do the test, but then there is no follow up. Like, how can I better use those strengths on my day to day? Connect with themselves, and also work on some limiting beliefs, because lots of people have those ideas, but somehow they are trapped in this belief that this is something they cannot have in their life, because maybe only privileged people can have it, like coming from very rich families, or those who can afford not to have much income within the first 2 years, talking about entrepreneurship, right? So of course, like, the first year can be tough. That's true. There's always sacrifice. There's always like this kind of trade-off. Maybe you just have to give up your luxurious corporate life for a year and just eat in normal restaurants, not super expensive ones, and maybe spend holidays in Europe or Spain, for example, and not to have 2 exotic trips a year, somewhere to, I don't know, wherever, Asia, America. But you can definitely get there, but there's always a little bit of this sacrifice element in it.
Okay. And when you're working with people trying to identify some of these limiting beliefs, do you find that they already know what they are? Or is this, and just don't know how to deal with it? Or is it a process by which, when you're speaking to them, you help unearth and identify them?
Mm,
I imagine there's probably a little bit of both, but is there, I'm always curious because I'm also a coach and mentor.
mm,
Usually, the people I speak to, they already know what they're doing wrong. They're just
mhm.
not quite sure how to address it. Um, and so I want to see if you, if what you think about this.
Yeah. So if someone never had coaching in their life, it's pretty common that they don't really know, because they also suppress somehow those thoughts. They come and they're like, no, I'm pushing them away. This is not existing. And the more we do of that, like pushing away, the bigger problem we create, because it's really good to acknowledge, to stay with those emotions. And if, for example, you say, no, I don't get nervous with the interviews. Of course, you're gonna get nervous with the interviews even more, right? Or if you have this belief, oh, I cannot be a great public speaker, but I just don't want to hear it. It's good to acknowledge that, It's like, yeah, maybe I need Toastmasters, for example, right? We have this amazing organization that helps people with public speaking, for example. So yes, people who never had coaching maybe in their lives before oftentimes have like partial clarity. People who are a little bit more, maybe a little older, or they already had some coaching engagements, usually, yes, they are more aware. And oftentimes they are just getting the second or third chance to really work on it, right? Because we, as coaches, we are all different. We may not be compatible 100% with everyone, but sometimes simply the person like is all of a sudden in this great moment in their life when they are ready to actually face those things and work on it. Because sometimes it's not the matter of like having a bad coach or having misalignment, but oftentimes it's about like I'm so busy with other things in my life that this little limiting belief that maybe I cannot be the best like manager or like the best public speaker is my priority number 10, because I have other things on my plate that are more urgent, for example.
Okay. And let me ask you, what makes working with you unique? So how are you special in your approach?
So I definitely attract expats, and of course like people, Polish people as well, because of course they can associate themselves with me. I also attract people who also want to transition into entrepreneurship or create their businesses or just simply become better leaders. I'm also very much involved
Okay.
in this conscious leadership. And another thing that is also attracting people to me is my methodology. So I combine professional, let's say, methodology with also NLP and energy healing if someone is actually based in Barcelona. So this is a little bit more therapeutical, and spiritual practices, of course, for those who are open for it. But I always say those are the tools. I can provide like similar results with different tools. But of course, if someone is open to explore, we can, of course, do this. So this is probably unique, that I am ICF coach, but at the same time, I'm very much into spirituality as well.
I see. Okay. And I get this question quite a bit, or it's a common conversation. The number of mentors or coaches that have kind of sprouted over the last 10 years has really ballooned. And I don't really, I function more as a mentor, as a very specific coach for a short period of time, but it's not my business. I get sought out for certain skill sets to help people. As you and I both are, I think, participating with the Professional Women's Network here in Barcelona. What do you advise to others who have an interest in starting a coaching business? They have certain skills, unique experiences, perspectives. What do you say to them?
Yeah. So I would say definitely, first of all, connect with your pain. So the coaches that are more successful, that I'm like observing in my area, are usually those who have this very strong why, So like, why am I doing this? Because in the past, I was, let's say, struggling very much with relationships, right? And I see them very passionate about this job. So
I see.
it's like we don't really struggle with having all of the sudden, I don't know, coaching session at 8 p.m., which can be, for some people a little bit of a struggle, right? But if you're like super passionate about your job and this why is very strong, you somehow help this version of yourself from, I don't know, 5-10 years ago, right? And this is actually amazing. And this is bringing you so much satisfaction, seeing those people, growing, blooming, and really kind of getting rid of those limiting beliefs or really tapping into things, whereas in the past they were very much in this victim mode or in this super like perfectionism, and they thought like, I either do it perfectly or I don't do it at all. So, they don't do it at all, for example. And I would say don't get into this trap of perfectionism, as I said, and imposter syndrome. Because that was also my mistake. before I launched my business officially, I've been studying so much. I became this ACC ICF coach, and then afterwards I dared to create my website and announce everything to the world on social media. So if I think about it now, I should have done it like minimum 6 months earlier. Okay, maybe this is not a very long period of time, but there was all of this procrastination and all of this, am I ready? So this is my regret. So I would say jump into those things a little earlier, but I also say, yes, you need some education. I'm not saying it needs to be ICF. There are different courses, but yes, get ready, get educated before you go and serve people, because this is a big responsibility in the end. Coaching,
Okay.
regardless whether this is career or just any other domain.
Well, I was just listening to what you're saying. It flows perfectly into the next question.
Mhm.
What would you do differently in the early stages of this career transition, whether it's for yourself or is it something that you would recommend to other people? And you started to touch about start earlier or try to identify things earlier. But I'll let you address this. What do you
Yeah.
think you do differently?
Yeah, so I would have started earlier, okay, and I wouldn't wait for all of those official certifications, because of course there are certain institutions that wouldn't let you in without those certifications, but you can always start your Instagram account. You can always start posting on LinkedIn, which is a little scary for some people, so they would absolutely post anything and just communicate with the world through Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. But somehow this LinkedIn, it's sometimes like, wow, all of those colleagues see me online, and what would they think of this message, etc. So there is this aspect that is still blocking many people. So
Yes,
this, and
we see
also,
that a lot here at Metropolitan. We're talking to young
yeah.
or small businesses, but there's also people in large companies who haven't had to deal with social media, and they're afraid of making a mistake. But anyway, I feel like I cut you off when you were talking there, Magda. Sorry.
Yeah, well, this is very interesting, a mistake, because if you think about it, okay, it is more of a professional platform, but we still have, in most of the cases, almost the same people on LinkedIn. Whereas, okay, Instagram, Facebook, maybe there are some differences, but many of those people actually are on those three platforms. And yes, the user behavior is also different. Like, people definitely pay more attention, like, to their comments, etc., because this is all visible, right, for their peers, managers, etc. But yeah, I feel that there is still too much of this worry and like, what if this is not the smartest answer or post in the world, that nothing happens, right?
Yeah. Well,
uh,
it's really interesting you mentioned this because LinkedIn does handle comments and posts differently than some of the other social media in the sense that just if I write a comment on somebody's post, my audience sees my comment. It's not necessary for the person I'm writing to. So the algorithm is very different.
yeah.
Um, and so, my daughter's 24, and she's actually has a very nice and flourishing business. I was actually just talking to her yesterday. And one of the things I'm starting to get a lot more questions from people in their early and mid 20s, like recently out of undergraduate degrees. What kind of advice would you give to people in their early 20s when it's their careers are just really beginning and going in a certain direction and they haven't had too much experience yet? What advice do you pretend to give them?
Yeah. So I would definitely suggest them to connect with their passions and really work on those trends. And I really see this, let's say, educational system to be very different from what I experienced. Okay, I was raised in Poland, so if I think about this massive amounts of tests and just like answer to those 5 questions, my education wasn't very creative. So now I'm actually happy for them that they can be way more creative and they can actually express themselves already at the early age, right, which wasn't the case, for example, for many people. I'm talking about Eastern Europe. I'm a millennial as well. So I would say really believe that you can monetize all of those interests that you have in your life. And I'm not saying that you should be tapping to 5 things at the same time. It's better to focus on 1 or 2. For some people, it is not very possible to focus on one thing because they are just simply interested in many things. Those are those multi-passionate people. And I also believe that it's correct for some people to not to be just focus on one thing and just be the specialist, etc. But I would say like really have this belief that you can monetize many things in your life. So if you decide to maybe make money out of the paper, like planes, I don't know if this is it can be lucrative business. Maybe I'm a little square-minded right now, but there are many things that you can monetize, and also take this into consideration that with the AI development and everything, like we will have such jobs like in 5-7 years that we don't even imagine right now. So I would definitely look into those trends as well. What can work well, what would the world need. And I really see this emotional sphere, anything, consciousness, something that AI cannot support right now, or in the near future, as something maybe worth looking into. So I would say, just really believe that you can live from your passions, because during my times when I was like picking my studies, etc., it was so much about this, how you can make money. So people were basically making decision based on what can be profitable within those next 5-7 years, etc. Oftentimes not really even connecting what they are actually passionate about. So I would say just believe that you can live from your passions.
Okay. One of the things that I hear a lot of is, or a question is it better to be an entrepreneur and take some risks when you're young, or say when you've already had a career, you've achieved your goals, and now you want to start your own thing? So I get a lot of women at the Professional Women's Network and the Barcelona Women's Network. They're experienced, they're savvy, they have all kinds of value that they can add, and they're wondering whether they should stay with a big company, multinational, or should they start to do their own thing? Which is better, do you think? Be entrepreneur at a young age, or be an entrepreneur a little bit later in life once you have some experience?
Yeah. So I see some entrepreneurs that are in their 20s and they are already very successful, and their salary is sometimes way better than the 35 years old person in the corporate. So this can happen, right? And this is actually becoming more and more common. I would really suggest to everyone, ask yourself a question. What would this, for example, 40 or 50 years old version of you tell this present version of you in regards to, for example, career? Because for me, this is like right away what is coming up is like, you always wanted to have your business, just push and you will make it, and remember that maybe this gratification won't come immediately, but like with the time. So also looking at my business, I see the gradual growth, right? And one day maybe it will just like explode, hopefully. But I think there's no one answer to that, because for some people it may work like that. They just work their corporate career, and then they have all of this experience, etc., and then they create their businesses. But for other people, like I see them in their 20s, this is really not a must at all. They value their freedom so much. They are super creative. They don't want to have like this tight schedule and back-to-back meetings. And I see them actually very happy and flourishing. So why not? So I would say really connect with yourself. And there's, honestly speaking, there's no one answer to this question.
Okay. Well, one of the things I've been advising a number of people similarly. I think I come to the same conclusion. There's no really one answer that fits everybody. But if you're going to take a risk in general, do it when you're young. The opportunity cost of doing it when you're older is harder. You sometimes have kids, you have relationships, you're tied down. And it's sometimes you're more flexible dealing with a chaotic nature of a startup than later in life when you need to be making mortgage payments and paying for college for your children. And so sometimes it's the cost of opportunity, or the scare of trying to start something new, is even bigger. If you're young and you don't have anything to lose, well, fine. but if you have, fixed costs and fixed expenses, that's a tougher ask. And but one of the things I would say is, if you are considering doing this, go to the Professional Women's Network in Barcelona. They have a fantastic mentoring program, and you can meet fascinating people that have some experience. But for today, I wanted to say thank you so much, Magda. And I wanted to make sure that people knew how to contact you. So I have you here. Is this the correct address to reach you?
Yes. So it's phoenixcoaching.co. Of course, you can always contact me on LinkedIn. This is my main, I would say, social media platform. But yeah, phoenixcoaching.co would be great.
Excellent. Is there anything that you might want to share besides this? Because other than this, those are my questions for today. But I wanted to see that, make sure that you had an opportunity to say anything that maybe we didn't address today.
No, I think I have shared like the most important things. The last maybe words would be, just really don't block yourself from things that are somehow emerging in you, and maybe you are waking up with those thoughts every day. Because if I think about the regrets, and this applies to many people, oftentimes we regret things that we haven't done rather than what we done in the past. Maybe yes, maybe we regret certain conversation that we just lost our temper, and maybe it was a little rough conversation. We regret those small things. But when it comes to big decisions, usually people have regrets that, oh, why I didn't do that when I was in my early 30s or late 20s. I just like stick to my comfort. And this is usually what people regret. So go for it.
Well, I'm really interested that you said that, because we were talking before we went live. My biggest regret, I think, is not pursuing a career in medicine formally. I spent some times at hospitals, in emergency rooms, and I rode an ambulance for many years. But all of this was very much driven by my passion, or my a love that I have for a certain man. And it's true. It's not so much things that I've done, rather things that I didn't get the chance to do. And sometimes I've done okay. People kind of think that I've been quite successful, but there's an area of my life that most people don't know, and that I found my passion actually in emergency medicine. And yet I was too cowardly to admit it when I was younger, that I was terrified of organic chemistry. So I was never good at the chemistry. And so right now I find myself living vicariously through my youngest daughter, who just got accepted to get her MD PhD at Edinburgh. But a big regret is not being more tied to daily life of being involved in medicine. So fantastic words. Do you regret more what you've done or things you didn't do? I'm going to make that a poll on LinkedIn.
Exactly. But also, the last thing I wanted to say here, Victor, is that certainly there's still something you can do in this, direction. Maybe it's not exactly this, but something else. Maybe you can reflect upon it later on.
Excellent. Wonderful message to leave on. Thank you so much. And as usual, Metropolitan is here, always trying to add value to the international community with leaders in the community, people that are making a difference in other people's lives. Magda, thank you so much for what you're doing, and for having the courage to come out here and talk to us and share with us your journey. So
thank you very much, Victor. It's been a pleasure.
Have a fantastic Friday, a great weekend, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you very much. Take care. See you soon. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.